So this is what we're making, a wire cuff with a removable end. So start by making your silver beads. You make whatever you want on the end of this bracelet. And what we'll do is we'll solder one on so it'll be fixed. And then we'll just put the tubing in the second one so it will screw on. So start with the diameter of metal a third bigger than you want the bead to be, because it'll, as you dome it, it'll shrink. Now, to make the cuff bracelet, take a 3mm round piece of wire, 150 mil long. Your bench plate is 150 mil long, so I use that. You can cut it with your side cutters. And then file the end flat. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat, but just take the sharp bit off the end. Do both ends. And just slightly round it, because when we thread the die over this, it needs to be slightly tapered to be able to start the die. Take your wire, put the middle of it on an oval mandrel, and you can start just by pushing it around, and then take your rawhide hammer to finish forming it. Make it a nice shape, and then we'll thread the ends. We're going to put threads on one end of our wire cuff. This is a tap and die set. It's a cheap one. It's $20 for a complete set from Super Cheap Auto. The only thing is, this is automotive and it only goes down to 3mm. Well, we're using 3mm wires, so this is good. Normally, your jewelry tap and die set looks like this compared to this. So this is actually good for down to a 1mm wire, and it goes up to 2.5. So this is the small stuff and this is the big stuff. Big stuff is easier to work with. We have the die, which is sharpened steel threads, and this is meant to screw over a wire, and it's held in a die holder, and it's positioned with the tapered side out, so that when you turn the threads, it'll start over this slightly rounded bit in the end easier. The tap is meant to do the inside of a hole, and it also has a tap holder, a tap handle that holds it. Now, when you're doing threads, external and internal, you need to make sure that they're the same pitch. It'll say on the tool, so this is a 3 by 0.5, and this is also a 3 by 0.5, so this means that the threads match. There's almost always a coarse and a fine set of threads. These are fine. So this will actually screw together because the threads match. But this is for making the threads on the wire, and this is for making the threads inside the hole. So place your die into the die holder, the die handle, with the tapered part out here. Set that with your screw. Put that to the side. We're going to use our GRS bench vise for this. So take your peg off, put your vise on. Take your wire that you've formed and the end that you've put a real small taper on, you need to bend up. Yeah, because when we swing the handle, we need it to clear this end. So put that in your vise with the bench up, with the wire pointed straight up. Now we need a little bit of lubricant on this. So just a small amount. Hold your handle and make sure that this is level. I usually turn it with my fingers in the beginning until it bites. And once it bites, it'll actually hold itself on. But because this is a fairly small wire, you could probably do the whole thing just using your fingers close to the die. Once you get one turn, back off a little bit so that the chips will drop out. Take another turn, back off. Another turn, back off. Now you want 3 or 4 full threads on this. So this is the end. Okay, we've got threads on it, and that's all we need, just that amount. So now you can go back on your bracelet mandrel, form this, don't hit the threads. Now at this point, we're going to take one of the silver beads that we've made and solder a piece of chenille inside. Now, the chenille has to be 0.5 millimeter smaller than our wire. Yeah. So this piece is actually the same size as our wire. So what we need to do is make this smaller, and it's quite easy to do. Just taper the end and pull it through a draw plate just like you would wire. It will make it smaller quite easily, but be careful you don't go too small. So check it quite often. I think this is only going to have to go one hole to get it small enough to put our threads in. So what I do is crimp the end on this. You can use your flat round pliers. Bend this in with your parallel jaw pliers. File a slight taper, and we're ready to pull. So I've pulled this down. My inside diameter is 2.5, which means I have 0.5 millimeter on either side to cut my threads into. So at this point, we're going to drill and burr the end of our bead out so the tubing fits inside. So I would use progressively larger drill bits. You're going to have to hold this in your fingers so you can't go too big. And then we're going to use a cylinder burr, which is just a parallel burr. So we can go in and it acts like a hone.